Welcome to Expedient Means with Lin Wei on Time Monk Radio. Lin currently resides in China and is the founder and head teacher of Guizhen Philo-Cultural Society. He has extensive experience in Buddhist and Taoist meditation, Qigong, martial arts, and traditional Chinese medicine. To learn more about Lin, please visit his website at www.guizhenhui.net. Tonight, Lin will be speaking about the call to your empowerment.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for listening to Expedient Means on Time Monk Radio. I'm Lin Wei. Thanks for joining us tonight. Well, today's discussion is something I think is very, very special. The reason I call it very special is because it's something you probably will not hear unless you're paying thousands of dollars for an empowerment seminar somewhere out there in the world. When I was younger, I've seen, never attended, but seen so many advertisements for empowerment seminars. And now this type of empowerment is not the energetic type of transference of things. It's more of a try to understand how to be successful kind of empowerment. And so today's discussion is going to be based on my experiences and what I would love people to know as a way to help guide them in fulfilling what they truly wish to fulfill in their life. And my experiences with that basically can hopefully play an example in your life. Perhaps it can help you to find a better idea on how you can push forward and fulfill what it is you are hoping to attain in your life. Well, I would rather start again on this aspect, something about conclusion. We like to conclude our ideas about life. I would say, let's not conclude anything in our mind. Never conclude the vision of your life based on what others think about you and your lifestyle. I mean, unless your lifestyle is, I like to go out and kill animals and drink their blood. I'm being very disgusting. Or like to hurt people. I mean, if you're in a violent type of lifestyle, I would advise, not just because society doesn't do things like this, but I would advise to not do that for your own sake. Obviously the sake of the people you're hurting. But let's reverse a little. We don't want to conclude the vision of our life based on what others think about us. We shouldn't. Because doing so only places you within a cage. It's just a cage of more false thinking. Let's change it and say it's a box of views and thoughts based on your myriad thoughts about others' views. Someone tells you, oh, you can't do this because this is not right. It doesn't work. I have my experiences, and I tell you, after 60 years of living, this will never happen. And then you live in a world of doubting if what they say is true. And then when you go about doing what you do, you kind of doubt yourself. So you defeat the purpose of your efforts. You see, believing others' ideas without even investigating them would only result in a suffering by allowing oneself to live a life based on what others think. It's pretty obvious, right? I'll go into a little bit of my own experiences. When I was around 18, 19 years old, I already had I started my cultivation consciously in this lifetime around 8 years old. So by the time I hit around 17, 18, 19, I started to feel I wanted something that complemented the mind state I was in. Some type of clothing. Something not stylish, not fashionable, inexpensive, and very light. I didn't like any metals on my body. Even with jeans and the metal zipper and the button, I don't know, I just didn't like it. But I did find a style. And at the time I didn't know what kind of style this clothing belonged to, but it was Chinese clothing. So by that time, I already had a meditation for a while. already, and cultivation practices. But I liked the clothing of the style I chose, the Chinese, old traditional Chinese clothing. It was light, it was basic colors, no medals, no zippers, just buttons that you have to loop. Like loop something over the button head. We call it frog buttons in the West, I guess. I loved it, but I didn't know it was Chinese clothing. I mean, I had the idea, but it didn't hit me like it was a big deal. It was just clothing that felt good. So when I chose this clothing, I wanted to find more things that empowered the lifestyle that I was envisioning for myself, that kind of fit with, the already 9 years I've been practicing. The cultivation practices had led me to be less attracted to the modern ideas of the world, and allowed me to focus more on that which doesn't depend on technology. Even though I was using technology, my idea, the inner feeling of this kind of knowing, we'll just put it this way, a certain type of awareness or a certain type of knowing, and I'll just call it a non-discriminative knowledge or non-discriminative knowing, just allowed the state of mind that I was in to bring an experience of a world without all technological ideas. There was no attachment to these new things out there in the world. It didn't empower the material ideas of, material worship, I'll call it, materialism. So I found a type of clothing that was very nice and comfortable, and it fit for me. It wasn't expensive and really wasn't fashionable. But the downside of this happy feeling was that for years, people made fun of me for wearing it. Now, they would scream out, Bruce Lee, or even Bruce Leroy. Okay? And I never understood the jokes, though. I mean, I knew who Bruce Lee was, but I didn't know how far or didn't know too much about him. Bruce Leroy, yeah, I knew it was a character in the movie. And it still didn't click because it wasn't something I paid attention to. People making fun of you, okay, yeah, whatever. It didn't really click in. I didn't really need to worry about who they were making fun of. After years, though, of going through this, walking in the street and people pointing and laughing and, just making fun, making jokes, I kind of put two and two together that people were laughing at my clothes and thinking I was some crazy guy. So I just rolled my eyes and, realized, oh, they're laughing at the clothing, laughing at me. Obviously they don't know, so I just stopped paying attention again. After I paid attention, I rolled my eyes and then let it go. Funny thing is, in the streets, on occasion, I would get into various types of people would argue or make fun of me to a point where they would come to fight. They would say, oh, you practice martial arts, right? You think you're all good wearing these clothes in the street? I mean, what the hell are you talking about? At that point, I didn't study martial arts formally with a teacher. I was learning through meditation, certain methods that I would become aware of about movement. And that allowed me to get out of the way or mimic people's motions a little easier than most. So I would say, no, I don't practice anything. Just a student, philosophy, meditation, whatever. Sometimes people would just turn away, and sometimes people would actually just give me a scenario about what they're going to do to me and then try to do it. So funny. But they never succeeded in actually hurting me. And it would last only for about 20 seconds. I mean, I would get out of the way, or I would find a way not to hurt them, or, whatever. They would end up becoming a friend, or just laughing and saying, okay, sorry about that, and then walk away. But that wasn't the bad thing, really. That was just a little downside. Not very comfortable. But the worst part I found about the lifestyle that I chose, the worst part on a superficial level, but not actually the worst part. I mean, I didn't really mind, but the problem was that even those who I had assumed to respect, like some of my older teachers, they would make fun of me too. They would think they were more superior because I didn't wear their style of clothing. Jeans, leather jackets, or whatever. Just whatever everybody else wears. And then people would start making fun of me, saying that I would want to be Chinese, or think I'm some great master or something. And I would laugh too, because I'm saying, wait, I'm just wearing this type of clothing. And okay, so this was a Chinese cultural clothing. This is what people wore in China for a long time, whether they did martial arts or not. No big deal. And I would just throw it aside. And I would still wear it. And people would still make fun of me. Even my teachers, even those even close to me too. And then they would try to use those things against me. But I really wouldn't give in, and I would just ignore, or I would just laugh it off and go about my business. Because what other people think of you is not your business. It's what you think about them is your business. So I continued on my path, doing what I do, wearing what I wear, because it didn't hurt anybody. I didn't invoke false thinking, like push people to think falsely. It's their own conditions about what they see and their own attachments to their senses that cause them to go further in their false thinking. I never influenced anyone in a negative way. So I figured, okay. This is good. I'm going to stick with this. I feel at peace, and it makes people feel, those who know me feel okay, and those who don't, well, they don't like it, and that's their problem, because I'm not hurting them. Anywho, when I was 11 years old, I had this dream job. I wanted to be a teacher. Not just like an English teacher or whatnot, but that was cool too. I wanted to be a teacher of meditation, cultivation, philosophy, something that helps people to structure their lives and or support themselves when there is no such thing as technology. What is the world without our modern ideas? What is the world without all our creations and inventions? When all that stops, when there's nothing left, what do people have? They don't have hospitals with all these great machines, so when they get a fever, when they get sick, they got to know how to fix themselves. They get a broken bone, they got to know how to fix themselves. No, I didn't go to medical school, but I learned a different type of way of treating. I learned it through Qigong, learning how to practice energy work, which is a Qigong practice, breath cultivation, through meditation. And I learned specific methods, certain methods, on my own through meditation on how to use these things that I learned to help people get better. And I stayed practicing that, and people made fun of me for that too. So I figured I wanted to do this type of work. I want to teach people how to do all this natural stuff. When I say natural, I mean that which is not dependent upon technology to function. Okay? If you're in the forest, if you're in the street somewhere and you fall and hurt your ankle, how do you fix your ankle? Even if it's broken, or if it's sprained, strained, or whatever, how do you help yourself? Did you just sit there and cry and use your cell phone? You don't have a cell phone. How about that? So I want to teach these things. Teach people to be more appreciative of their, what I know now, the right terminology would be to appreciate mindfulness and to awaken to their inner wisdom. When I would tell people about this idea, they would tell me to go jump off a roof or go shoot myself in the head. Get a real job like they did, they would say. So, I just laughed. I said, why? Why should I have to adjust my ideas, or why should I have to give up what I know in my heart to be right for the experience of life I want? Just because society does it one way. So what other people like, they cannot do because it doesn't make them money. Well, how about I don't want to make money? How about money is the outcome that I don't have to pay attention to, because if I do it without hurting people and benefiting others, I'm sure they will be benefit for me at some point. The idea is to get through the path, not to worry about the outcome. They didn't care. You will never succeed. That's what they said. So I traveled across the world. 14 years old, I wrote a little idea. I said, by the time I'm 30, I want to experience certain things. I want to experience having no money. I want to experience being sick and not being able to pay for medicine. I want to experience not having enough money to eat dinner, not having enough money to eat food, pay my bills, pay my rent, buy new clothes. I want to experience much of the problems people experience by the time they're 50. Basically, I wanted to experience midlife crisis and everything else that causes people to jump off a roof or shoot themselves in the head. Okay, basically. I figured if I do it before 30, I would have a better idea about things later on. So I also wrote what kind of jobs I want. I wrote them down. I also wrote where I want to be in the future. And exactly what I wrote is exactly where I am. For example, I wrote by 2004, I would be in China. And lo and behold, though I forgot that I wrote it 10 years prior, in 2004, I was in China. And after a few months, it hit me when I was lying on my couch staring at the sky, because I had a good view of the sky from my living room window at the time. It hit me. Exactly what I was asking for, I was attaining, because I didn't give up. I didn't create more false thinking about what other people thought about it. I just continued. I investigated why people act and say the things they do, but I did not do what they do. So I lived in China, and I still do now. Or at least I come here to do work. And go back and forth basically every year, once or twice a year. Lecture in China, lecture in New York. While in China, I learned of old and new Chinese culture. Excuse me. Lifestyle and behavior. I even adjusted my lifestyle based on what I felt made sense and worked for the betterment of humanity and, everything. This was in my mid-20s, 24, 25. When I was 28, I returned to New York. I opened my own cultivation school, cultural center. Though I needed help financially, and I did get it. I paid back. Sometimes it was returned to me as a donation. Sometimes it was taken back. I accomplished my dream of having a school, though. Because when I was young, I wanted to have a school where I can teach cultivation. And even though I attained, that aspect, I still had to face problems, trials, tribulations, people who wanted to take it from me, people who made up notions and lies about why it should be theirs or why I am in the place I am in now. And these are close to me people. These are people who are so close that it's like teacher, and friend that want to take away. So the school was just the first step. And everything else that came with it was trying to temper me so I don't give up. If I fell into it, created more false thinking, I would just have given up. But I didn't. I pushed forward, because in cultivation, adversity is your fuel. So the school was the first step. It was a beginning, just a sprouting of a root from a seed, you can say that. And, years went on, it evolved to be more than what I started out with. I mean, as I began to teach some martial arts in there and throw in cultivation ideas within the teaching of martial arts, and then have cultivation students as well, it turned into a community center, like a free community center. No help whatsoever from the government, just me doing things, my students doing things, or friends doing things as voluntarily for society, for our community. And sometimes it even became an international one, where we had people who needed help with their bills, who immigrated to New York, well, to America, and lived in New York, and they didn't understand what they were doing with their bills. They didn't understand things, tickets they were getting for driving or whatever. Things they didn't understand, they came, and they asked for help. If they needed an apartment, they needed help to find it. Some people told them to come here to my school. So I would help them out, but it was all done for free. Because when I lived in China, if I really had it the way they had it, where they came to America with nobody. They didn't understand the language. They didn't know anyone out here. They just came here. Now, if that was me living in another country, I would be, at that time period, I would be, whoa, what am I going to do? I don't speak the language. I don't know anybody. I'm just here looking at this guy going, oh, okay. What do I do now? So they had help, because that's what I wanted. So you give people what you want, and then you get it in return. So all my efforts, was grassroots, and it offered a type of outlet, an outlet for people. And because I wanted to continue on this lifestyle, and it was hard, I observed other people who were doing what I was doing on a community level, so I would work with them. I would ask them to show me how to do things. I try my best to do what they did in the way I can understand. And then the students, like I said, got involved, and people in the community, and we influenced people in the community too. I always told the students that they should not identify themselves as a martial artist or a cultivator. Not even hold an identity. Just be known for what you do in society. And don't even seek to be known, just do. And that itself would influence people. They would remember you, or they would remember the good things you did, and they would be influenced to do this for others also. Then in 2011, I closed the school. I pursued my personal path. I furthered the path because of seeds I planted before in my lifestyle. And I closed the center. I had other things happening as well that I said, you know what, I should close it anyway. I couldn't leave it to anybody. And the people who tried to do things to stop it for 3 years, on one end, they got their wish that I was closing the school, but they didn't get the wish that I would fail and need them. So I closed it, and within those 3 years, I realized, and I learned, that if obstacles go unchecked, then their influence will corrupt those in the immediate vicinity. That's why I didn't leave the school to anybody. I couldn't. Not with the name, not with the reputation that it had, even though it wasn't a famous reputation glittering with, sparkles and gold and sprinkles and whatever. It was just a reputation of helping. It was almost like we were there, but we weren't there. I didn't want to leave that. So I just closed it up and walked away. Even offered the space to the people who tried to do their craziness to me. Offered it to them. Said, hey, you want it? Go rent it. I go to the landlord, I take care of everything for you, and here you go. Even paid their first month's rent because they weren't getting concession. So that's one aspect of facing pains and problems when you're trying to do your thing, when you're going along in your path that you know is the right way in your heart, that doesn't hurt people, that only empowers people, and you'll meet with a whole bunch of obstacles. So then I returned to China. I'm going to further the experience, I'll go on with the story, because I believe if you have an idea about someone who can do, then you may find the strength or the power, or even just the right idea, the right notion, the right view to go further too. So I returned to China, and since then, 2011, I've been teaching culturally influenced English, meaning I've been teaching English that has Chinese cultural points to it. Understanding behavior, understanding Western culture and Chinese culture together for the children who are learning their English. But that's not the reason why I was able to return. I returned because I was told to teach philosophy, martial arts, and while I will teach English as well, it needs to be coupled with Chinese culture influence. It needs to have that in there. They want to have children remember the culture. If it wasn't for that aspect, I would not be here again in China. So after doing all this, I remembered when I was a child that I wanted to also find an outlet to speak my ideas. Perhaps they could be beneficial to people. Lo and behold, in 2013, I did an interview right here on Time Monk Radio. I was interviewed, and then there were discussions to have a show. So now we have our show running 1 year already. 1 year and 2 months. Right? On top of that, I have a wife and a child, and I still push out to grow further. Sometimes I don't even wear my Chinese clothes. Some people can't handle it out here. It brings too much attention. The attention is silly. People like to take pictures, or some people think I'm an actor somewhere, or doing some type of singing, or some type of presentation, or whatever. It brings too many questions, too much. It's like a big waterfall of, just like a whole waterfall of questions. I think it's a little disruptive too, for my family. Be bombarded with people taking pictures when they see me wearing changpao or a tangzhuang, tangzhuang, or just anything like that. So sometimes I don't wear it because now it starts to influence people. Other times I do, but my work has a requirement that they hope I can continue is to wear my Chinese clothes. It's expected of me, but it's not forced upon me. This is exactly what I've been loving to do. So, the beginning of our talk, just realize that if you place yourself in views of what other people impose on you, you will ruin your life. You will live on the views of other people. Basically, you're walking into their home, living by their rules now. No one said life is truly how everyone else experiences it. They can just give you an idea of what they experienced, but they cannot give you the fact of what life is, because I always figure if people are living according to their senses, basing the world upon what they experience through their senses, then they're not basing their views on what really is out there in the world. When people see a clear sky, clouds and birds here and there, when they look and they see that, I see something different. Different colors, different things, different parameters. I see a blue sky with a bird flying by and a cloud whisking around. But from where I am, it's different for me. People hear the wind, but I hear others. I hear things that other people don't. I hear everybody in the wind, but that's just me. I could be crazy. My conversations with people are with their quote-unquote higher self. This term higher self has created a lot of false thinking since I heard it. Everyone who talks of spiritual this, spiritual that, always talks higher self. There is no self. There is just our inherent wisdom. There is this original nature. Sure. We can call that the higher self then. But it's not separate. It's not something outside. Not something above and then there's a middle self and then a lower self. It's not like that. There's just a false thinking mind, and then there's the very clear, unobstructed mind. The wisdom mind. So when I talk to people, I look at them as though I'm talking to their wisdom mind. Well, most people's conversations are with notions they have of the person they're having conversations with. I'm really not viewing the person as in a specific way. I'm just talking to them based on the matter at hand. So, take this as an example, because when people said I couldn't succeed in raising a family and doing what I love, well, 15 years later, it's a little different now, huh? When they used to tell me this, I just feel a pain in my heart that it would feel like a knife twisting inside, stabbing, slicing all over the place. It felt bad. I felt bad. That they believed it. I had to prove to myself that life is not what others assume, but what I myself conjure up within my own mind. That's what the Buddha meant when he said all things come from the mind alone. So the world is based on their own karma and capacity and understanding and realizing that. or one's world is based on their own karma and capacity and understanding and realizing just that. Okay? So the Buddha said all things come from the mind alone. Isn't that interesting? We should investigate that phrase. Sit in meditative contemplation, or contemplation meditation. The karma and attachments to the manifestation is what people experience. See, the world is not true, quote-unquote, true, until those karmic influences no longer arise. When they no longer arise, one can truly see what is actually there. So I tell everybody, for your empowerment, hopefully today's discussion, today's story, can help influence you and help you just grasp a hold on that dream you have, or that idea you have to make your life good, or even better than what it is now. So push forward and do not give up on yourself because of what others think. I receive a salary for doing what I love to do, because I went through years and years of pain in the butt experiences to get here. But this is not the end. This is just, okay, now this is a cooling time. This is just a calm. Now there's more to develop. So it doesn't end. But I'm not grasping and I'm not ambitious for it. So don't grasp and don't chase on ambition. Just go towards the accomplishment of your vision. When the majority says no, it most likely is a good plan. When they all agree, you should think twice, 3 times, think 400 times before taking action into it. So this is my call to your empowerment. Believe in yourself, or believe in that which is beneficial for others within the path you choose to take. And do not let what others consider mistakes that you have experienced or done to be chains that hold you down. Mistakes are only mistakes if they were not intended. Most people feel that if they didn't benefit from what you did or do, then it is a mistake. So that's a little silly. Yes, I experienced people who tried to argue with me this point too, that it does nothing for them, so I shouldn't be doing it. People will take your mistakes, or people will pick and choose from your experiences and your depression or your sadness or things that go unsuccessful or just don't go very well for you. They'll choose that and say those are mistakes and use it to put you down, and use it to hold you down, and use it to make your path even more difficult. Don't bother. Don't worry. Okay, let them tell you you did this and you had this and you had 25 million divorces and you had 500 million girlfriends or boyfriends or whatever. Okay, let them say whatever they want, because that's their problem. It's not your problem. When you make a mistake, it's because you were not consciously aware of what you were doing, of the causes and outcomes of the things you were doing. Then you realize, oh, it could have went a better way. That's why we call it a mistake. So then you changed your habits and views and behavior and character to not have to do that thing again. And you do it well. And then what happens? People who remember that state you were in, a year later, 2 years later, will bring that up. Oh, you can't be the way you are now because you were doing this before. You're such a hypocrite. Like, what are you talking about? So people can't change? They can't change their own behavior? That's what you have to ask. And laugh, because some people are very immature. They need to be right, and they need to be solid in their position. And whatever they assume of you is exactly the way it is. To them. And they must have people believe it. It's their own empowerment, their egotistical empowerment. It's silly. Don't bother. The path I'm telling you to walk on, or empowering you to walk on, is not lonely. It's lonely for the people who make fun of you and people who put you down and try to hold you down. You don't have to walk proud on this path. You have to walk with compassion on this path. So make no mistakes at all, unless you are totally inept to realizing the cause and outcome of your actions. But when you do make a mistake, fix it. Change your views, your reactions, your thoughts, and habits of which brought upon the manifestation of your mistake in the first place. We need to just basically change things. Investigate your mind and character and everything. That way, all is good. Stick with your path. Make sure it's beneficial in ways of not harming others. Don't be greedy. Finances come in time. You cannot jump on the path and say, oh, I'm on the path now, I should have money. No, the path, you never jumped off the path, though. That's what we have to realize. There's no, I'm going on my spiritual path. No, you've always been on this path. It's just now you are clearing away the obstacles and realizing the clarity of what you're doing. So, I hope our discussion today had a little bit of help for you. And if it didn't have help for you, I hope it made some sense. And if it didn't make some sense, then just toss it aside and leave it alone. Thank you very much for joining us today. And we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Expedient Means with Lin Wei on Time Monk Radio. And as always, we'll end with our closing quote. And tonight that is, those who seek power are not worthy of that power. And that was spoken by the Greek philosopher Plato.